Hello everyone, welcome. We're going to get started. I just want to get started by welcoming everybody to Deliverability Best Practices webinar brought to you by Hallmark and ExactTarget. This is going to be the first in a series of webinars we'll be holding around the topic of digital engagement. So we hope to hear more from you all in the future and have you all join us in the future on additional webinars. As the industry's only provider with a fully integrated enterprise digital marketing platform, we've had many clients request our input on deliverability. So that's why we decided to start here, as well as we understand the impact of deliverability on your everyday business. Acquiring and engaging each incremental subscriber is an essential goal of likely everyone here on the phone. And our goal today is to help everyone here on the phone advance acquisition and engagement with tools to help you get your valuable content and reach more of your audience. Along with this webinar, our two speakers will be referencing a best practices guide. That best practices guide will be sent to each of you following the webinar. More than happy to share it. And presenting today will be Kayle Deyne from ExactTarget, who works with Hallmark and our clients to ensure email marketing success. Prior to ExactTarget, Kayle was with ReturnPath and Epsilon and brings a great deal of industry knowledge, specifically on deliverability. Many of you already know Kelly O'Connell. If you don't, Kelly is Hallmark's digital marketing subject matter expert. She's got deep real-world experience in helping B2B publishers enhance their digital marketing programs. During the webinar today, Kelly and Kayle will be answering many previously submitted questions, and your chat window will be open so you can submit questions directly to our speakers. However, just due to the size of the audience today, if we can't get to your question during the webinar, we'll follow up with you after the webinar to answer any questions. Additionally, the webinar will be recorded and available on our website. Without further ado, I'll introduce Kelly and Kayle to get us started. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, Josh. I'm excited to be here. Before we dive into today's webinar about deliverability best practices, we want to touch on the business impact of deliverability. So it's important to know why we're taking this topic so seriously and how setting a solid foundation for deliverability or optimizing some of the aspects of your email marketing program can affect the big picture. So we've chosen to go over the deliverability best practices from the basis up. We believe each of these elements depend on each other and affect each other. The order is not necessarily in order of importance. Many attending here are established email marketers and have taken care of some of the foundational aspects like authentication and sender reputation. However, some of you may just be getting started. So we want to talk about the first steps of authentication, permission, and sender reputation. Move on to additional elements that require upkeep or could be optimized throughout the life cycle of your email campaigns, such as engagement or data hygiene. Then we'll discuss what steps can be taken when dealing with a deliverability crisis. And as Josh was saying, we've collected questions leading up to today and will answer many of them during the content of the webinar. And we will be sending out a resource guide afterward with follow-up information and additional resources, as well as contacting some of you directly about the questions you've submitted and a little Q&A sheet along with the resource guide. But please feel free to submit questions during the webinar, as Josh said, and we'll also include those in the Q&A. So deliverability has a huge impact on your business, and especially in the B2B space where the number of subscribers you're sending to directly correlates to your revenue. However, deliverability also affects brand awareness and brand reputation. We know that there's a constant pressure to be aggressive on how much email to send to your subscribers. As marketers, you kind of have to weigh the revenue gained versus the long-term effective factors that can negatively impact your deliverability and reputation in the email space. And during this webinar, we're going to help you manage that trade-off and discuss how to curate a clean, organic list that's full of good, engaged subscribers so that you can continue to send more without negatively altering your deliverability score. We encourage you to use the Deliverability Resource Guide, which has a formula in it to determine the value of your email subscriber and the revenue impact if your deliverability suffers. After calculating this, you'll have a clear and measurable ROI, and you can weigh that against other pressures that you face as email marketers. So before we dive into the best practices, I just want to quickly look at the pathway of an email. So an email goes out and immediately goes through servers, both sending and receiving. And these servers have filters associated with them. And this is where your sender score and your authentication are incredibly important, and also where bounces occur. Once an email gets into the email environment, granted there are no bounces, it can either be directed to the spam folder or to the inbox. And then once in the inbox, subscribers can engage with an email or complain. All of these steps and aspects of deliverability will be discussed today, along with best practices related to each, and we're going to start off with authentication.
So before you send your first email, it is important to ensure that your authentication records are properly set up to avoid getting a red light to your subscriber's inbox. According to the Radicati Group's most recent email statistics report, the majority of email traffic comes from business email, which accounts for over 100 billion emails sent and received per day. As you guys know, email remains the predominant form of communication in the business marketing space, which is why internet service providers, also known as ISPs, and postmasters are relying heavily on proper authentication to help fight spam, phishing, and other means of email fraud. So that brings us to what exactly is authentication? Authentication is essentially an identity check to ensure you are who you say you are when knocking at the door of the postmaster. There are 3 commonly used authentication checks. First, the SPS, or Sender Policy Framework, which scans the domain and host of the email sent to confirm authentication. Then there's the Sender ID Framework, which was developed by Microsoft and is similar to SPS with one main differentiator. It scans the domain using the from or sender field on the header. And lastly, domain keys, also referred to as DKIM, which uses a cryptographic technique to validate and authenticate the email. So today the industry has moved toward the adoption of either SPS, DKIM, and occasionally both. According to Return Path, major email service providers like AOL, Hotmail, Yahoo, and Gmail are using both, but today there's not a public standard on what authentication measures are enforced by each major ISP or postmaster. The nice thing is that when you partner with Hallmark and ExactTarget, we ensure all of the appropriate authentication checks are in place and working correctly so that you can send your campaigns with confidence and the ISPs and postmasters know it's you. So what do you do now? Well, if you're currently with Hallmark and sending off of the ExactTarget platform, sit back and relax while we continue to ensure your authentication is buttoned up. If you're just getting started or new to email, you can use the Deliverability Resource Guide to ensure you're in compliance with authentication standards, access the tools and guides to create your own authentication records, and also validate your current authentication records through the available testing options. So once you're fully authenticated and an authenticated sender, it's important to focus on building a solid reputation. So after working in the email space, and specifically in B2B, I can confidently share that sender reputation is the meat and potatoes of optimizing your deliverability. If you read the quote to the right, it shows that 55% of mail that is sent to subscribers, so people that have opted in, don't receive mail, and it's filtered to the spam folder. That's an overwhelming amount of mail that's not being delivered to the inbox, even to people who have opted in and are eagerly awaiting your message. This usually is because of the sender having poor reputation. So what exactly is sender reputation? Believe it or not, spam filtering companies, including the B2B players Postini and Microsoft, keep reputation scores on your company. This score is called the sender score and is an indication of trustworthiness of the emails you send and the filtering criteria that you will be bumped up against. Just like a credit score is used at a financial institution to decide if you are worthy for a loan, a sender score is used the same way to determine if you are worthy to get your email into the inbox. Sender scores range from 0 to 100 and can change multiple times per day. If your sender score is low, ISPs and postmasters are more likely to apply additional filtering criteria to your IP and domain. And in contrast, if your sender score is high, you're more likely to bypass those filtering, and ISPs and postmasters will focus solely on content and engagement. Now, reputation is commonly IP-based, with the exception of Yahoo, which relies heavily on domain reputation to make their filtering decisions. ISPs and postmasters, however, are working towards making domain reputation more relevant in the email ecosystem. So while reputation is based on a handful of factors, which we will walk through today, the most common are complaints, which is when the subscriber hits the spam button, unknown users, which is when you attempt to deliver mail to an unknown, bad, or invalid email address, and spam traps, which we will walk through in detail later today. So what can you do now to understand and improve your sender reputation? Using your deliverability resource guide, visit www.senderscore.org to determine what your current sender reputation is. If your score is below 90, we recommend that you contact your Hallmark account director to discuss ways to improve your score. Building up a solid reputation can take time. One way to ensure your sender score does not suffer is by being best in class when it comes to subscriber permission.
So not only is the who is sending this email important to postmasters and ISPs, it's also important to your subscribers. So permission deals with how a subscriber opts in to your email marketing. Typically, this is defined as an explicit opt-in where the subscriber is checking a box. However, in the B2B space, there are many times where a subscriber is passively opted into other types of communication. But it must be clear in your privacy policy or during the initial opt-in of the who, what, and how. So the who is sending the email. The from domain and company name should be clear. The what is what type of email. Is it marketing, promotional, subscription related, third party, transactional? That should be clear in the opt-in. And the how is how often you'll be sending the subscriber emails. Is it a daily or weekly newsletter? Is it a monthly alert? This who, what, and how are what ISPs are looking for to ensure that you have permission to email to that subscriber. All of this can be communicated in a welcome email. It is known that a welcome series is far more effective than one welcome email. The first welcome email should go out within an hour of the subscriber opting in, as that's the most engaged they'll be with your brand at any time. And in this welcome series, take the opportunity to communicate the frequency and type of your emails. Another best practice is to include a preference center instead of just an unsubscribe link. This allows your subscribers to customize their email preferences and change them at any time. ExactTarget actually found in a study that the top reasons people unsubscribe are frequency, volume, and interest. Allowing subscribers to control these factors or change these factors will decrease opt-out rates and complaints. Thirdly, include a clear and easy unsubscribe link. Many marketers want to hide it down in the bottom corner. It's a dark link, it's smaller, but this actually increases the chance that a subscriber will hit spam or delete instead of unsubscribing if they actually don't want your email. Many marketers are starting to include it in their pre-header or toward the top of the email and may link to a preference page instead of a pure opt-out link. Again, giving your subscribers more control over their email subscription will lead to more engagement and less complaints. And lastly, consider how you're acquiring new subscribers and look for organic multi-channel growth. Co-registration and list append are still practices that B2B marketers use, but often it ends in a high percentage of unengaged subscribers, spam complaints, data hygiene issues, or quick list fatigue. So look to your website, social media channels, or even mobile to acquire new subscribers. And if you have any questions about how to use existing tools across these platforms to acquire more subscribers, we'd be more than happy to talk with you about that. So what can you do now? What's the takeaway action? Do a quick pulse check. Is your permission clear? When people opt in, do they know the who, what, and how of what they're opting into? Are you sending a welcome series or even a welcome email to highlight those factors? Again, the more clear it is to your subscriber how you're going to engage with them, the cleaner your lists will be. And having a list full of people who want to receive your mail, they're not hitting spam or delete, it leads to better data hygiene.
Data hygiene is a collective process of acquiring and maintaining clean data. Data hygiene is absolutely becoming more and more important as ISPs and postmasters are embedding more algorithms to address poor list quality in senders. Sending out poor data, such as unknown users or bad invalid addresses, can tarnish your reputation and result in blocking from the postmasters that matter most to the success of your email program. When I think of data hygiene with email, I think of two important strategies. The first being, how can I make sure that the data I acquire is clean, error-free, and accurate? This can be accomplished a few different ways. We recommend doing a double opt-in. This is accomplished by having the subscriber sign up through the website, and then before adding that email address to the greater population, you have them confirm with a follow-up email that they provided to confirm that you want to opt in. This allows you to verify the address before you add it to the greater subscriber population. This is a great technique to prevent unknown users and bad invalid addresses from making it onto your file. And I think important in the publishing space to prevent subscribers from adding an incorrect email address with the intention just to unlock reading content or material. Another strategy here is Hallmark has partnered with the industry leader in data validation, Verify. As an additional service, you can set up the capability for Hallmark and Verify to verify the email address at the time of sign-up. This is accomplished by Verify sending out an API call within seconds of the subscriber entering their email address in order to validate. If the email address is incorrect, the subscriber will get an error with a request to re-enter a valid email address. Again, this is a great technique to prevent unknown users from making it onto your file. The second strategy that we think of when talking about data hygiene is in regards to how can I make sure that the data I maintain is clean, error-free, and accurate. This can be accomplished through the appropriate suppression strategies. We recommend that you remove invalid hard bounces after the original bounce, that you're also removing soft bounces after 3 attempts. We also recommend that you remove and suppress all role accounts, such as info at or sales at, that you occasionally scan your subscriber list for misspelled domains, and lastly, and probably most important, that you commit time to review your message bounce code. You can usually get additional information surrounding what the bounce errors mean at the postmaster site. If you need help interpreting significant errors that you're hitting on your bounce log, reach out to your Hallmark data account director, and they, along with the ET Deliverability team, can certainly help. So what can you do now to improve your data hygiene? Do a pulse check. Is there a best practice strategy that you can implement to improve the accuracy of your subscriber list? More importantly, commit time starting this week and every week to review your subscriber data. Don't shy away from suppression when it means removing harmful subscribers from your database. When data is clean and accurate, you're more likely to optimize your deliverability, get into the inbox, and reduce the amount of complaints that your company has.
So a complaint differs from someone opting out, and it's also not a spam trap. So a complaint instead is someone who has actually opted into your emails and now is clicking "this is spam." Before I got into email marketing, I used to click "this is spam" without thinking it had any consequence on the business, or I guess without caring. Either I no longer wanted the emails, I didn't have a clear way to opt out or change my preferences, and so I just clicked spam, which essentially was like a second delete button for me. Your subscribers may be like that. Not all of them are savvy, and they may sign up for your emails today and complain tomorrow. So it's up to us as marketers to be smarter about how we're engaging our subscribers, and that we're up to speed and abiding by our opt-in agreement. So again, a welcome series is setting yourself up for success. Let your subscribers know who you are, how often you'll be sending them emails. If your subscribers know those, they'll be expecting your emails and will be less likely to hit that spam button. And make sure your opt-out link is clear so that if they honestly just don't want to receive your mail, you're making it easier for them to hit unsubscribe than to hit spam. And lastly, focus on dynamic, relevant, and targeted content. So you have lots of data, both demographic and behavioral. So you can start using these touch points to provide subscribers with more relevant content. You can start small with personalization and then grow out your content strategy to include different topics, images, headlines. The more targeted an email is to my preferences, including articles I've read on other channels, the more likely I am to read the email and engage with it. So what can you do now? You can check your complaint rate and do a quick pulse check, and then do some analysis on what's driving that complaint. Did you step out of the agreed upon opt-in agreement? So the frequency, the who, and the what type. How did you acquire those subscribers that are complaining? Complaints can be cumbersome, but they also can be mitigated. Another tricky spot in deliverability is spam traps, which was actually your, as an audience, biggest interests in topic by a large majority.
All right, folks, next we're going to talk about the dreaded S word, spam traps. The spam traps are email addresses that are activated and converted for the sole purpose of catching senders with poor data quality. There are two common types of spam traps that we're going to look at. The first is called a recycled spam trap. This is an attempt to trap senders with weak list hygiene. It is created when an ISP turns off an abandoned email address. By them doing this, this will produce an unknown user bounce code. If the sender is practicing good list hygiene, this email should be permanently suppressed from their list. After a period of time of sending that bounce code, the ISP will recycle this address and turn it back on in an attempt to catch senders that never removed the continuous hard bounce subscriber. This spam trap may have once been an active and engaged subscriber, opening and clicking through your email. However, did not engage in a significant amount of time with opens and clicks, and applied a hard bounce code before being recycled. An example of when this would happen is if somebody changes their email address. In my case, before I got married, I had a Gmail account with my maiden name that was kayle.mcbride@gmail.com. Once I got married, I created a new Gmail account that was kayle.deyne@gmail.com. I really abandoned the old Gmail account using my maiden name. What I'm sure happened is senders continued to send to me as a consumer and subscriber, but I was not engaging. After a certain amount of time of not engaging, Gmail turned off that Gmail account with my maiden name. If senders continued to send to me, they should have received a hard bounce code. If they did not suppress me at that time, Gmail eventually turned the lights back on my maiden account and caught those senders that were continuing to send to me despite being a blocked email. This can be accomplished by just making sure that we are suppressing when needed, and if people are not engaging, we're suppressing as well. The second type of common spam trap that we're going to review is the pristine, or also known as the true spam trap. This is an email address created for the sole purpose to catch marketers with poor email marketing practices. This email address is completely fictitious, was never owned by a real person, and they absolutely never subscribe to your email. So you're probably thinking, how in the world did this pristine spam trap end up on my list? Well, many spam trap operators will post their spam trap email addresses on their website or on a website. And bad actors will harvest that email and sell, trade, or lease that name to marketers who are eager to grow their list, which is all too common in the B2B space. The spam trap will have never opened, clicked, or engaged with your email. Return past studies have shown that even one spam trap, despite if you send millions of emails a month, can reduce your sender score more than 20 points and decrease your inbox placement rate to below 80%. So now that you understand what a spam trap is, the real question is, what do I do next? First and foremost, you need to review and optimize your data capture practices. You want to monitor forward to a friend and set rules in place that reject malformed addresses, role accounts such as sales ads and info ads. Another best practice is to avoid recycled spam traps is to provide a change of email address option in all emails. Lastly, create strategy and focus to grow your email list organically by tapping into other acquisition methods, in other channels such as mobile or social, opposed to purchasing, renting, or appending. While a common practice in B2B can significantly increase the risk of hitting a dreaded spam trap, if you do purchase or append, we highly recommend that you vet and audit out that list by testing a sample on a different, non-exact target IP space before adding it to your greater file. Review the list for malformed or role accounts and audit and question the third party's acquisition method. Lastly, the best way to prevent recycle traps from hitting your account is to have a clear suppression strategy, specifically for accounts that have not opened or clicked in the last 12 months. The process of identifying and eliminating spam traps can be time-consuming and a tiring task. A common solution is to narrow the segments down until the likely culprit spam trap is removed. If you're not sure if you're hitting spam traps, reach out to Hallmark. They have partnered with ReturnPath, the industry leader in deliverability, who can monitor spam traps down to a campaign level. Reach out to Hallmark account director to learn more about this additional service. Now we're going to wrap up the deliverability components with what you need to focus on with every send and campaign, which is engagement.
Engagement has become a huge factor for deliverability. And while it's definitely been discussed with major ISPs, engagement is still incredibly important to the B2B space. Postmasters, corporate IT teams work with ISPs often to filter out spam and senders with low sender scores. Engagement consists of a subscriber's engagement with your emails, so opens, clicks, and most importantly, conversions, or people clicking on your call to actions. There are many ways to improve engagement. First and foremost, leverage your existing data. And again, this includes demographic and behavioral data. What articles are subscribers clicking on the most? What topics have they selected if you have a preference page? Where do they live? So thinking about how to personalize and target your content will increase engagement. And then also look at segmenting your lists into tiers of engagement. So your highly, moderately, or less engaged subscribers, and how do you target each of those segments differently? Secondly, develop a testing strategy and an actual strategy. So I don't just mean test 2 subject lines against each other one time and call it a day and said that you did A/B testing. I mean fully develop out a strategy that exists over time that tests 2 theories over and over. There was a question asked leading up to the webinar about how to increase open rates. I think testing subject lines is a great opportunity there, and one way that you could do an A/B test is including a call to action in the subject line versus not including one, and testing that over time. And once you have a winner, and I'm willing to bet it's the call to action in the subject line and not the other way around, try to optimize that. So does a specific word work better than another, such as the word go versus X amount of time left? Subscribers experience burnout too. So I get newsletters all the time with the same subject line, here's your weekly newsletter, and it can get pretty boring and I lose a little bit of my interest in it. So having an A/B testing strategy could reduce that and actually make your subscribers more engaged. A/B testing is something that's easy to do. It requires planning beforehand, but it will increase your open and click-through rates. And then think about how your creative affects deliverability. So make it easy to read on mobile devices with responsive design and have clear call to actions. I know if I receive an email on my phone and I have to zoom in or scroll right, or it's not easy to click, I often just click delete immediately. And incentivize your subscribers. So why should they click through? Why should they open? What are they getting from your emails that they're not getting from your website or your social media channels? Make sure you're providing value in their email subscription that's unique to that channel. So what can you do now to increase engagement? You could try a re-engagement campaign. If you have subscribers that are less engaged, that haven't opened and clicked on your emails in a significant amount of time, send a last email reminding them of the value you provide and giving them a chance to essentially re-opt in. So LinkedIn actually did this to me. I got a weekly newsletter from them with articles that I liked, and I guess for a period of time I stopped reading it. One day I got an email from them saying, last chance, you're missing out on all this great content. It had one call to action that was essentially re-opting me into the list. But in the email were a lot of articles that were interesting to me because of my industry or my job title. And so I was provided with the value that that email brings. So I actually did click the call to action, and instead of just re-opting me in, it took me to a preference page, which allowed me to say if I wanted a different frequency, if my interests had changed. And so essentially they gained me back as a subscriber. And then secondly, you can build out your testing strategy with your team. Again, you can start small and build out, but sometimes the most simple changes can make large impacts. If you need any help with developing a testing strategy or a re-engagement campaign, please feel free to contact us at Hallmark.
Now that we've reviewed the different components of deliverability best practices, to include authentication, vendor reputation, permission, data hygiene, complaints, spam traps, and engagement, we're going to talk about what you should do when you find yourself in a deliverability crisis. Even the best vendors around find themselves struggling at a postmaster or ISP, or finding themselves on blacklists or with spam traps. The first thing you need to do is review your data. So confirm your crisis. Since we do have humans sitting at the end of our email program pulling the levers of our marketing efforts, it is a human process and errors can happen. We sometimes send to a list that we don't mean to. We send to a list that actually was suppressed. We accidentally put in the wrong subject line or content. Doing this can cause a spike of complaints, cause a spike of unsubscribes, so make sure to confirm your crisis. I usually recommend that if you're having deliverability issues for a solid 2 weeks, that can be confirmed as a crisis compared to 1 or 2 just bad campaigns. Once the crisis is confirmed, we recommend that you identify and prioritize. So really try to understand the scope of your crisis. Are you being blocked at just one ISP? Are you being blocked at multiple ISPs and postmasters? Are you being blacklisted? Really try to understand the scope, which will help you prioritize. Prioritizing can be hard because sometimes we want to accomplish everything at once and get back on our feet. A great way to prioritize is to compare where we're having issues versus where we have the greatest impact on our subscriber list. If 90% of your list is made up of universities and that's where we're having an issue, we may want to address that first. So prioritize the biggest impact that's impacting your deliverability to the least so that you know where to spend your time. And lastly, when reviewing data, assess the potential root cause. Did you use a different acquisition method? Perhaps you used an account that you didn't use before, or you purchased a list, or you acquired them in a different means. Review the segments. Are you sending to a more high-risk, lower engaged audience? And lastly, review the content. Was there something different in the image that you sent, the size of the image? Was there something different in the content of the subject line and the email itself? After you review the data, you need to move to step 2, which is prepare to move your cheese, which essentially is prepare to change. Often at my days at Return Path, marketers wanted things to get better, but weren't willing to make the changes to see that improvement. As marketers, it can be scary to think about spending less to our audience or changing our strategy, but sometimes that's what we need to do in order to get back on our feet. When preparing to move your cheese, we recommend that you involve the appropriate stakeholders. As email marketers, we are passionate and understand what needs to be done in order to move the needle in the right direction. But sometimes other people in our company don't share that same vision, especially when we're faced with other pressures such as revenue. Involving the appropriate stakeholders early to let them know that these changes are crucial in order to get out of the crisis is going to be important. Next, review the Deliverability Resource Guide. Check the guide to see if there is any low-hanging fruit that you and your team can implement to improve deliverability. You don't have to do that by yourself, though. If you find yourself stuck and don't know where to start, reach out to your Hallmark account director, and together you guys can come up with a deliverability improvement plan. And lastly, embrace new and potentially temporary strategies. Again, when we're moving our cheese and preparing to change, sometimes that results in us sending from 100,000 people to 50,000 people and temporarily suppressing those high-risk subscribers. Embrace those new strategies because they will work. Then, throughout time, you can build that list up again through organic methods or slowly start to introduce parts of those segments back into your greater population. After you've prepared to move your cheese, you need to monitor and measure.
So when you do finally move your cheese, whether it's temporary or a permanent change, it's crucially important to measure and monitor any of those differences. So any change you make, whether it's a change in your acquisition of subscribers or an A/B test of subject lines or a segmentation, document it. So the date and the nature of the change. You want to make sure that you can look back and ensure that the differences impacted your deliverability either for good or bad. And this is incredibly important if there are lots of changes that are made. And then also monitor your reporting over time. So again, this is a continual thing over and over instead of just a one-time kind of look at reports. Reporting can be viewed in your email platform with deliverability, complaint, opt-out, and engagement rates. There are also reports such as engagement over time, or even reports through return path that can be looked at for domain sender scores and deliverability scores. Make sure you're continuing to look at these rates instead of just on a one-off basis. So the trend of your deliverability is more important than one email blast. However, as we've touched on, one email blast can have a large impact. So you'll want to look at that one closely. And then think about how you can do ongoing maintenance. So continued analysis at your at your acquisition, looks at your data hygiene, or how to optimize your engagement or permissioning, preference pages, etc. We'll make sure that you're doing all that you can before another crisis arises. So as we've mentioned throughout today, to continue the discussion around deliverability, we will be sending out the resource guide following this webinar with helpful links to sources related to each deliverability best practice, as well as a culmination of questions that we were asked before today's webinar as well as during. Hallmark is partnered with ExactTarget, and that actually includes ExactTarget's amazing deliverability team. So we've worked closely with them before on issues with deliverability and have them as a resource for any questions or help. We do also partner with Return Path, which allows for marketers to see their deliverability score across multiple domains and can alert to any issues going on. And we have worked, as Kayle said, with Bright Verify to check the integrity of email lists and ensure that we're sending to good, clean emails. If you have any questions about any of these resources, please don't hesitate to contact your client relationship manager or us here at Hallmark. So we hope you found this helpful. I think Josh is going to close us out.
Well, thank you both. I think this was a very informative presentation. To wrap up, everybody, I just want to mention a few final notes. One is that our presenters went through a lot of tools today, and these are all tools that you all as publishers please use to consider and how they apply to your specific business. These aren't rules you must follow. These are all tools to consider. Some of these tools won't apply to everyone's business. For example, as many of our media owners on the line serve small business owners, and small business owners might have some role accounts on their sales ad, info ad, admin ad, on their list of emails. And we understand that that's critical to your business. We understand that the value of every incremental email address and every incremental engagement you gather via your digital programs is valuable to your business to optimize revenue as well as optimize shareholder value over the long term. So we are going to share with you all of these items that Kelly had mentioned. Give us a bit of time to get the recording up on our website. And if for some reason you don't see it in the near future, don't hesitate to ping us. But we should have the recording up towards the end of the day today, tomorrow morning at the absolute latest. The best practices guide should be in your email box later today. And thank you very much for attending.